We're going to start the sugya of Chassidus Chabad. And this year we're going to focus on the first two sichos of the booklet. But just before that, we have a small akdama. Just like everything in the world has primis and chitzenis, has a guf and a neshama. So to Torah has two parts. Has a guf of the Eiraisa and neshmas of the Eiraisa. Everything in Torah, you have pshat, remes, drush, and seid. When you have different layers of Torah. And in general, they're split into two parts. You have parts of Torah which refer to the guf of Torah, guf of the Eiraisa. And then you have parts of Torah which refers to the neshama of Torah, the primus of Torah, and the neshmas of the Eiraisa. Which with Derech Klal, these parts were hidden, these parts weren't revealed, and they weren't dealt with so much until the came of Shiur Yachai, and his main focus was on primus of Torah. And then eventually, through the generations, it went down until the Arizal said mitzvah legal chachma, that he started publicizing primus of Torah, until he came to Baal Shem Tov, that Baal Shem Tov was magal primus of Torah in a way of Chassidus, which means that Baal Shem Tov was magal primus of Torah in a way that it's accessible and it's able to have an effect on the person. The reason why the Baal Shem Tov had to magal primus of Torah in a way that could affect the person, in a way that a person could use it in Avodas Hashem, it's a different naisa, it's a different discussion, which the Rebbe spoke about also a lot of numerous times. It was mainly for two reasons. Number one, because it was just after the Gzeiros of Tach v'Tat, and Yidden were in a very low ma'amid matziv, and they needed to be strengthened. So Baal Shem Tov was magala primus of Torah in a way that it's able to revive Yidden, because it was needed for that time. And number two, because it was coming closer to Mashiach, and the Mashiach comes, that we're going to be learning primus of Torah the whole day. So as a chanan to Mashiach, the Baal Shem Tov was magala primus of Torah. That was the Baal Shem Tov. Then you had the Magid, who was mamshich derech Baal Shem Tov, b'ikar to his talmidim, and then came out the Rebbe. The Rebbe was machad Chassidus Chabad, which Chassidus Chabad kishmei keinhu is to bring down primus of Torah in a way of avana v'asaga. To bring down primus of Torah in a way that a person can understand it. And just like the Baal Shem Tov, the Chiddush was to bring primus of Torah in a way that it's negei ta'aveda, so to the Alter Rebbe was machadish to have primus of Torah in a way of Chabad, that through Chabad, through understanding primus of Torah, it's able to have an effect on you in a much deeper level. So B'Pashtos, what the Alter Rebbe did, the Alter Rebbe was mamshich derech Baal Shem Tov. Baal Shem Tov brought down Chassidus in a way of that it's abstract from Seichel. It had an effect on the person in other ways, like we're going to see soon. But it didn't affect the Seichel of the person. Comes the Alter Rebbe, and the Alter Rebbe is machadish that Chassidus could also be understood. In other words, the Alter Rebbe explained the Chassidus of the Baal Shem Tov in a way that's able to be understood. And here's where the sugya starts, where the Rebbe explains in these few sichos that the Alter Rebbe didn't only bring down Chassidus into a lower level. The Alter Rebbe didn't only explain the Chassidus of the Baal Shem Tov. The Alter Rebbe didn't only bring down Chassidus that it's able to be understood in Seichel. The Alter Rebbe was machadish something over the Baal Shem Tov also. And that's why the Alter Rebbe had to be in the Neshama Chadasha. That's why the Alter Rebbe had to be a nun Neshama. The reason why he had to be a nun Neshama, because not only he explained the Chassidus of the Baal Shem Tov, but he was machadish something over the Baal Shem Tov also. And that's what we're going to see in these few sichos. Now the first half of the booklet focuses on what the Chiddush of the Alter Rebbe was, which has 5 different sichos explaining 5 different Chidushim. The Alter Rebbe was machadish over the Baal Shem Tov. And then the second half is how through the Chiddush of the Alter Rebbe, that's Pearl Shlemos, that completes the Baal Shem Tov Torah. So in other words, the first half is focusing on the difference, if you could say, between the Alter Rebbe and the Baal Shem Tov. And the second half is focusing on how Be'etzem, through the Alter Rebbe, was mashlim the Torah of Baal Shem Tov and the Be'etzem one thing. So we're going to start with the first sikh in the booklet, and we're going to jump to page 6. Which in this sikh we're going to take out from the sikh a difference between the way the Baal Shem Tov was Megala his Torah and the Alter Rebbe was Megala Chassidus Chabad. So we'll start from page 6. We're going to do Siv Gimel. So the Rebbe started the Sikha by bringing down a Sikha from the Likkutei Rebbe. The Likkutei Rebbe says about Chayelol, when Baal Shem Tov and Alter Rebbe were born, that Chayelol brought a Chayis into Elul. That's one thing. And then the Likkutei Rebbe continues that Chayelol brought a Chayis into the Aved of Ani Deri V'Dei. And the Rebbe asked that Ani Deri V'Dei is a prat, is a detail in the Aved of Elul. We know Elul has 5 Rashi Tevisin. One of them is Ani Deri V'Dei. So why does the Likkutei Rebbe explain that Chayel brought a chayes into Elul, and then he says Chayel brought a chayes into Ani V'Deidiv Deidili. In the word Elul already includes in it David of Ani V'Deidiv Deidili. It's in the name. So why did Yiddishkeit specify them both? So in order to explain this, the Rebbe starts explaining the difference between the Alter Rebbe's Chassidus and the Baal Shem Tov Chassidus. So the Rebbe starts from Siv Gimel. The Nekudas HaChiluk zwischen Chassidus HaKlalis, the Baal Shem Tov and Chassidus Chabad, the Alter Rebbe, the difference between the Baal Shem Tov and the Alter Rebbe, hat Chagman V'Chama Admur Aris gebracht in a kurzen Pisgah. The Frierdiker Rebbe explained in a saying that says like this: the Baal Shem Tov hat bewiesen wie man darf dienen dem Eibishter. The Baal Shem Tov showed how a Yid has to serve the Eibishter. And the Alter Rebbe hat bewiesen wie man can dienen dem Eibishter. And the Alter Rebbe showed how a Yid could serve the Eibishter. Now, what does it mean that the Baal Shem Tov told the Yid how he has to serve the Eibishter? So from Pashtus HaLashon is the Chere Mashma, as the Teres of Baal Shem Tov weiß man nur, wie azeh es darf sein Avedas Hashem. Aber nicht in dem Derech, wie man kann durchführen the Aveda B'Peil. So with Pashtus, it means that the Baal Shem Tov told us that you have to serve the Eibishter, but he never gave us the tools how to use them, B'Peil. The Alter Rebbe showed us B'Peil how to serve the Eibishter. Said the Rebbe is Tamua, wie es scheich zu sagen, dass der Baal Shem Tov und Chas V'Sholem nicht bewiesen dem Weg, wie zu sein an Aveda Hashem B'Peil. How can we say that the Baal Shem Tov only brought an abstract idea that are no scheich to Peil? Vader habe. Der Baal Shem Tov wird aufgestellt, der Ribu Godel von Talmidim, mit Talmidim, auf der Hashem, auf Yiderech HaChassidus, farther is Galus von Chassidus Chabad. The Baal Shem Tov didn't only bring ideas that weren't connected to Peil Mamash. The Baal Shem Tov had the whole surrounding of Chassidim, and they followed this path. So what did they follow? Even before Chassidus Chabad, there was a following of Chassidus. Und als Tamida is in Deiris Lachrise, die, was haben nicht ausgewählt, mehr ist Sibbe V'Tam Shir, Chassidus Chabad. Even the Chassidim of the Baal Shem Tov who didn't have it to do with Chassidus Chabad. There was the Karliner and the Chomshenoble, there were a lot of other Tamidei HaMagid who didn't have to do with Chassidus Chabad. But they still followed the Derech of Baal Shem Tov. What did they follow? Bei sie ist gewiss gewähnt, nicht nur die Idee, wie man darf dienen den Eibishter, not Aveda B'Peil, P'Darech Chassidus. By they had an element of Aveda B'Peil. So we can't say that the Baal Shem Tov only told us what to do, and the Alter Rebbe taught us what does Baal Shem Tov mean. So maybe we have to understand what is the pshat as dafke the Alter Rebbe bewiesen wie man can dienen den Eibishter. How can we say that the Alter Rebbe was the only one who showed us how to serve the Eibishter? There was a whole movement before the Alter Rebbe. So in order to explain this, the Rebbe explains the fundamental difference between the way the Baal Shem Tov was Megalech Chassidus and the way the Alter Rebbe was Megalech Chassidus Chabad. And these two ways, in Primus HaTeira, we have the same concept in Teira in general. Now Teira, the way Teira was revealed was in two ways. So it says that Ziv Dalar. Wenn das verstehen behegdem, als Geshevi me ken gefinnen bin Negea Teira Chassidus, als früher ist die Nimshach geworden bei Eifen Klali, Chassidus HaKlalis. Und danach ist herabgetragen geworden in Chassidus Seichel Chabad. So we find, just like by Chassidus, it was first revealed in a general way, and then it was brought down into Seichel. We find the same concept to the general aspect of Teira, that Teira itself was revealed in a general way, and then in a detailed way, in a specific way. The Rebbe has gegeben Teira should be ksav, on Allah is anignis lanul vanenu, from Teira Shabal Peh. The Eibishter didn't, when he gave Teira Shabiksav, he didn't only give Teira Shabiksav, he gave Teira Shabal Peh. Zusammen mit die Klale HaTeira. And he also gave the rules of Teira. Midis Teira Shabiksav nidreshet behem. The rules of the Teira are the way that we could translate Teira Shabiksav into Ma'aseh B'Peil. So we see that Teira Shabiksav was given, number one, Teira Shabiksav and Teira Shabal Peh. And in Teira Shabiksav itself, it was given a way how to translate Teira Shabiksav. Daraus haben wir jetzt zu Teira Shabal Peh, und so tun Teira Shabal Peh, wie zu darstellen und ablernen von Psukim, wie zu sich eisig sein in Eimik, Taime, Alochis, Apilpa, Tameh. So tun Teira Shabal Peh. Teira Shabal Peh was also given in two different ways. It was given in a general way, and also there was given a way of how to learn Teira Shabal Peh. Und danach, durch dem Limud der Teira von Yidden, leid die Klale HaTeira Shnidl Meshim Misinai. After Teira was given, and Yidden learned the Teira B'Peil, werden nischadish durch Zere Yegier mit Zere Seichel, through a Yid learning Torah, using his own Seichel and his own toil, his own work, he's able to bring out Kama v'Kama Inyanim B'Teira, Chidush halachis leinkeit v'tachlis. Through a year learning Torah, is able to be mechadish in Torah. Something that wasn't revealed, said in a revealed way said before. And not only be mechadish a specific path, he's able to mechadish leinkeit v'tachlis. He's able to mechadish a unlimited level of Torah. So we see that Torah has two parts to it. There's a part of Torah which is in a general way. That's Torah Shebiksav. And then you have the pratim, the details of Torah Shebiksav, which is Torah Shebal Peh. And in Torah Shebal Peh itself, you have the Torah Shebal Peh itself, and then you have the way to learn Torah Shebal Peh. Now, through using the prat, through using the details of how to learn Torah Shebal Peh and how to learn Torah Shebiksav, we're able to derive things from that weren't said before in a revealed way. Was das ist eine von der Biyurim Maime Chazal, kol ma shetam levasig asid lechadish, hakon nitten lamesh misinai. The Gemara says in Masechet Megillah that everything a Talmud is mechadish. Every Yid who learns Torah is mechadish something in Torah. That chiddush comes from Moshe Misinai. L'cheres that's a stiri minei obey. This statement of anything a Talmud is mechadish comes from Moshe is a contradiction. If everything was given to Moshe Rabbeinu, it doesn't need chiddush. It's not a chiddush. He wasn't mechadish anything. It was already given to Moshe Rabbeinu. So how wie sagt man of them asid lechadish? How can we call that a chiddush? It's not a chiddush. It was already given to Moshe Rabbeinu. Maybe it was revealed through him, but it's not a chiddush. That's one question. Ich didn't move on. Wie ist scheich zu sagen, dass Moshe Rabbeinu hat in azak kurzen Zman durchgelernt kol atere kula mit alle chidushim von jeder tam levasik at seif kol aderes. How can we say that Moshe Rabbeinu in these 40 days, when he went to Sinai, he learned the whole Torah, including all the chidushim that were given throughout all the generations? Befrat as das is kelel dem chidush Torah miiti teitze. Especially that the chidushim that any Talmud Vasik is mechadish includes also the Torah of Mashiach. Torah of Mashiach. What's a zayin beribi muflog? The Torah of Mashiach is going to be completely unlimited. So how can we say that in 40 days Moshe Rabbeinu learned such a huge amount of Torah? So the Rebbe says the answer is any from the Biyurim in them kanal. The explanation is like we said before. Moshe Rabbeinu had makabel gven Torah Shebiksav and Torah Shebal Peh mit alle klali Torah. Moshe Rabbeinu, when he learned Torah by Sinai, he didn't learn all the chidushim that were said afterwards. He learned the rules of Torah, klali Torah. And how to use these rules to learn out from Torah Shebiksav all the details. Adarech hapshat, haremes, hadush, v'aseid, and the different layers of Torah, the way Torah could be translated. Und der Talmud Vasik lernt und nimmt bepeil die Prati Ashaki v'Torah ha'pilpul v'cholu bis zum dim Prati von dem Klal. So when a Yid learns Torah and is machadish in Torah, he's taking out of Torah a detail that was hidden in the Klal. Und der Rebbe ist es achidush wie bad as Moshe hat bepeil dem in Prati nicht gelernt. Moshe never learned this specific detail. Moshe learned the rules, the general concept of how to take out a rule from Torah. Of Lashon Chazal, like the Gemara says in Masechet Menachos, as Moshe lo yedea the tilin shel halachos of Rabbi Akiva Gedarshan. The Gemara brings down in Masechet Menachos that when Moshe Rabbeinu went to get the Torah, he saw the Eibishter putting crowns on certain letters in Torah. So he asked the Eibishter, why did the Eibishter need to put crowns on those letters? And the Eibishter told him that there's going to be someone in the future generations. His name is Rabbi Akiva, and he's going to be darshan. He's going to bring out tilin shel halachos, piles of halachos just from these crowns on the letters. And it says that Moshe Rabbeinu was shown in Rabbi Akiva, and he didn't know the halachas that Rabbi Akiva was teaching. So Moshe Rabbeinu got upset and told one of the students, asked Rabbi Akiva, how do you know, where do you get information from? So Rabbi Akiva said, Allah Sinai, that I got this from Moshe Rabbeinu. So we see there's two sides over here. From one hand, we're saying that Moshe Rabbeinu didn't learn the halachas, and Rabbi Akiva was talking mechadish it. It was Rabbi Akiva's chiddush. And that's why it's called Kol Mashat Hamad Basig Asad L'Chadish. He's talking Mechadish the Chiddush. On the other hand, any Chiddush in Torah has to be according to the rules that Moshe Rabbeinu was taught. In other words, the guide for all the halachis and the klal for all the halachis, what makes it Torah, what makes it something which is the Eibish's Chachmeh, that comes from Moshe Rabbeinu. And that's why it's Hakon Nitan Moshe Messina. Like the Rebbe continues. V'bal daber as alle Chidushim in Torah müssen sein gebuit if the klalim was Moshe had mekabel gem b'Sinai. Everything in Torah has to be built on the rules, on the laws that Moshe was taught from Sinai. Kum teis has hakon nitin Moshe Sinai. Everything was given from Moshe Sinai, because the foundation of anything in Torah, what makes something Torah, isn't that it's a chachma, isn't something that was learned out. What makes something Torah is that it was built on the klal Moshe Rabbeinu was taught. And therefore, al tzishein given kailal behel makapanim in the Torah is given by mission. Everything was included, at least in a hidden way, in everything Moshe Rabbeinu was taught. Because if it's not coming from what Moshe Rabbeinu's Torah, then it's not Torah. On the other hand, when the Talmud learns it, it's his chiddush. That's what the Talmud vasik haravet eis mit zayin seichel zum megala zayin and in prat in Torah shebal peh led the klal Torah. The chiddush is attributed to the Talmud. The Talmud worked with his seichel, and he's learning with his seichel and mechadish with his seichel. He's not only continuing Moshe Rabbeinu's klal into a detail. He's being mechadish in Torah. Und das wird in Inyan Ikri in Talmud Torah. And this is one of the main attributes of learning Torah. It says a chiyuv if called Ish Yisrael. Not to learn in das es steht schön in Svarim bechulu, nor ich mechadish hen balachas hen magad hen menigel hen minister. That a yid has a chiyuv to mechadish in Torah. If the dagish when a person learns Torah is to learn Torah's Moshe, to learn something that comes from Moshe Rabbeinu, so you should only learn whatever is written already. We see that a chelik of limna Torah, a chelik of the chiyuv of learning Torah includes in it to mechadish in Torah. Und noch mehr, jeder Yid hat a chelik in Torah, was darf mechadish sein, was in dem is totally the shleimus of sein nefesh. That the Eibishter created the Yid with a certain part in Torah that he has to mechadish. Which means that every Yid, the Torah is waiting for every Yid to be mechadish his specific part in Torah. What do we see from here? We see from here that Torah was revealed in two ways. There's a big emphasis on being Megala, the klal of Torah. Moshe Rabbeinu, Torah's Moshe, what was given to Moshe Rabbeinu, Torah Shebiksav, Torah Shebal Peh, and the klalim of Torah. And together with that comes the emphasis on being Mechadish in Torah. Together with that comes an emphasis, a chiyuv, on a person being Megala, new parts of Torah that weren't revealed before. And the Rebbe teaches us that the same concept exists by Chassidus also. Und der Derech zeh, das in dem Inyan von Chassidus Chabad, Adrabtragen Chassidus in Seichel. The same concept applies to Chassidus Chabad. That which the Alter Rebbe brought down the Chassidus Baal Shem Tov into Seichel, as Chassidus L'cheda Prat in Chassidus HaKlalis, even though Chassidus Chabad is touching up the Chassidus Baal Shem Tov, Chassidus Chabad is translating, is bringing down into Chabad, into intellect, the Chassidus Baal Shem Tov. Werd aber aufgetan a Chidush v'Chidush Ikri in Chassidus. Through the Alter Rebbe bringing Chassidus Chabad into Chassidus into Chabad, into Seichel, so that's Pe'el Chidush, even in Chassidus HaKlalis. The comparison, we have to understand a little bit the comparison between Chassidus Chabad and Chassidus HaKlalis and Kol Ma Shetam Avasig Asel L'Chadesh. When we say Kol Ma Shetam Avasig Asel L'Chadesh, everything that a Talmud brings out in Torah is Mechadish in Torah, Hakal Nitel Moshe Messinai. So like we said before, when a Talmud is Mechadish in Torah, it's Taka is Chiddush. He's Taka Mechadish something that wasn't revealed before. Moshe Rabbeinu lo yoda. Moshe Rabbeinu did not know the Tilin of halachas. Moshe Rabbeinu did not know the halachas that Rabbi Akiva was Mechadish. So when Rabbi Akiva was Mechadish, it was a Chiddush. Mashenkim Chassidus Chabad, the Pashtos, if we learn that the pshat that the Alter Rebbe did, all the Alter Rebbe did was he brought down the Chassidus of the Baal Shem Tov into understanding. So he wasn't mechadish anything. It's true he brought it before, it was an abstract concept, and now it's a concept which is able to be understood. And the Alter Rebbe explained it in Eifin of Tam V'das. But why is that a chidush? Why is that a chidush over? And why is that a chidush over the Baal Shem Tov? In other words, it's a chidush in kamos. It's a chidush in how low Chassidus was able to reach. But why is that a chidush in eichus? How does that change Chassidus of the Baal Shem Tov? So we must say that through the Alter Rebbe bringing the Chassidus of the Baal Shem Tov into Chassidus Chabad, that itself, that it comes into Chabad, that itself is a Chiddush. That itself is a Chiddush to the Baal Shem Tov, not only in Kamos, but also in Eichos, it changes and is Mechadish, a new idea in Chassidus, a new word of Chassidus. So to explain this, the Rebbe starts explaining the word of Kol Ma Shetam Avasig Asel L'Chadesh Nidnel Moshe Messinai. So the Rebbe in Sifhei. At the end of the day, why is the Talmud Vasig? Why do we call it his Chiddush? It's true that Moshe Rabbeinu didn't learn every single din. Like we brought down from the Gemara, Moshe Rabbeinu lo yoda, lo yodea tilin shalach. Moshe Rabbeinu did not know the dinim that Rabbi Akiva taught. Aber a Chiddush amiti meint doch nicht nur as die Sache ist früher nicht gewesen begonnen bepeil. When we say something is a chiddush, when we say something is a new thing, so it doesn't only mean that it was hidden and now it was revealed. Nor, ich as sie is a filo bekeach nicht gewesen. It wasn't even potentially in the potential. Und wie bald es die Prati, als die dem Prati ist gewesen, Kelo Be'elam, in Tere wie Meish Rabbeinu hat sie gelernt. Since this din that the Talmud Vasik is mechanish, has to come, has to be included somehow in Meish Rabbeinu's Tere, has to come from the Klolim that Meish Rabbeinu taught. Was the first document kanal hakel nitel Meish Misinai. Therefore, we answered how on one hand it's a chiddush, but on the other hand it comes from Meish Misinai. Is wie rufmen das Fartam b'shem chiddush? How can we call it b'shem chiddush? So just to explain the question a little bit more, there's two ways you could say that the prat comes from the klal. If you have a picture, and if the picture is made of hundreds of different details, all the details are there in the picture. They're not only there b'keach in the picture, they're not only potentially there in the picture, they are the picture. They're there b'peil. And if you're going to zoom in to the picture and focus on different details of the picture, you're going to see different details of the picture. And then once you zoom out, you'll be able to see how the details compile the whole picture. So that's pshat, that the prat is there in the klal. Then you have a different type of klal, that the klal includes the prat, not the peil, that's not actually there, but it's there potential. And if it wasn't there potentially, then it wouldn't be able to come out in any way. Although if a person never had, the nefesh never had the capability to see in the nefesh, then a person wouldn't be able to see. Even though the nefesh itself is higher than seeing. The nefesh itself is higher than coming down into koyach hariyah. So there's a klal which includes the prat in a revealed way, and then you have a klal which includes the prat in a potential way. And B'Pashas, this is the two eishes, the two sifim in the sikha. Before, the Rebbe was asking, how can we say on one hand it's nitin lachadish? How is it a chiddush if it was given from Moshe Sinai? And the Rebbe answered that the way it was given from Moshe Sinai wasn't in a way that it was that the chiddush that the Talmud is machadish was included in Moshe Rabbeinu's Torah. It's not that Moshe Rabbeinu learned everything and then the Talmud brings it out from Helam to Gilui, or the Talmud brings it out from detail from the general concept. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't know Moshe Rabbeinu didn't know this prat. This prat wasn't even there in any way. Elamai, Moshe Rabbeinu gave the klal, the general rules, and from those rules, they potentially include in it all the chidushim that the Talmud is going to be mechadish. On one hand, it could be called a chiddush, and on the other hand, it could come from Moshe Sinai. But now that I was asking a different question, that I was asking in Chanami, that in a general concept, that could be true. But when Torah calls something a chiddush, when Torah says kol ma shetamid vasig asel l'chadish, then it can only be true in a lower level. It has to be a chiddush amiti, a true chiddush. Something that is completely new, that wasn't included before, even B'Keach. Because if not, Torah Semes won't call it asel l'chadish. And that's a problem. To say that they're going to have an emes chiddush, something completely new, that wasn't said from Moshe Rabbeinu, then it's not nitel Moshe Sinai. That's a stira. The Rebbe is going to have to answer that the chiddush we're talking about over here isn't in Torah. It's not pshat that the Talmud mechadish something, but that the person was nischadish. Something happened in the person, that is the chiddush. That's the answer. They're beating them with al chefshe. The Torah chiddush is nit azay mitzad al chefze. Dem inyin hanilmad. When we say a chiddush, asel l'chadish, that the Talmud was mechadish something, it doesn't mean he was mechadish something in Torah. As that inyin is anayis, was his free nit given. It doesn't mean that there was something new that wasn't there before. Nor beikir mitzadim gavra adam haloimid. It means that like the person was something new. What does that mean? It means that in Torah Shebal Peh, wie is kolol in Torah, wie is gegeben geworden bei Sinai, is a sehr viel behelm bis das Kanal, a viel Moshe was hat gewusst alle klali wie fahren limud a prat min a klal, lo yedea mahin einim. The way that Torah Shebal Peh is included in Torah Shebiksav, it's so behelm, it's so concealed, that even Moshe Rabbeinu, who he knew the klali Torah, he knew the way to learn the details, learn them out from the klal. Even Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't able to know the halachas of Rabbi Akiva. Und dem Pratz kommen des Galus is a uftu was gehört den ganzen zum Tamil Vasik. To take out this prat from the klal That's completely a Chiddush of the Talmud. Und der Rebbe heißt es a Chiddush from the Talmud Vasi, therefore it's called after his name. Why? Wie bald als dem Gilo Inyan Eiskar wird bekech Atzmei. Durch Gia Sichlei is es mitzadim the Inyan Chadash Mamish. Since the Talmud used the Seichel to bring out this part of Torah, and like we said before, that this part of Torah is shaykh to him, therefore, since it came from his Seichel, so it's named after him. In other words, since the Kama Shatamad Vasa Gasal Chadish means that the Eibishter gave Keach that a person is able to Magala Torah with his own Seichel, with his own capabilities. And everyone's capabilities is different. Everyone has their part of Torah and their Seichel to bring it out. And therefore, Moshe Rabbeinu, even though he knew all the ways to learn out Torah, the Klali Torah, he wasn't able to, he didn't know the halachas of Rebbe Akiva. Because that was Rebbe Akiva's part of Torah, that Rebbe Akiva's own Seichel had of it to bring out. And therefore it's called after Rebbe Akiva. So the Chiddush over here is not the Gabi Torah. Torah, everything is included in Torah. The Chiddush is the Gabi the person. The Gabi his Keiches, this thing was Nischadish, through his Keiches. Und das ist echt einer von den Timing, von was die Shleimus HaNefesh ist tali in dem Inyan von der Chadish Seichel Chadash in Torah. Why is the Shleimus HaNefesh tali in dem being Mechadish in Torah? That the Shleimus HaNefesh be tali in learning Torah. A person should learn Torah. He doesn't have to Mechadish in Torah. Why is it such a necessity to Mechadish in Torah? So the Rebbe says, according to what we explained before, it's understood. Because that emissary Inyan von Seichel is, as that Inyan Sichli wird bei dem Adam Musag v'nitfas. Seichel, the true concept of Seichel means that the Seichel is able to resonate in the person who's thinking. Nicht durch dem, was zweiter, wenn man glaubt, versichert ihm, als der Inyan ist azeh. Not because someone's telling him he has a higher authority in Seichel, and he explains to him the Seichel in a way that the person understands it, but he's believing in that it's true. Nor durch dem, was bekeach Seichel, hu, versteht azeh. That's the true concept of Seichel. The true concept of Seichel is that a person using his own Seichel to understand something. Then you could say it's understood. Calls man that he's understanding it from someone else, or he's learning Torah that someone else said, and not being mechadish in it. So it's not nitfas, it's not grasped, and it didn't resonate in his own seichel. He didn't resonate in his own keiches. Und der Fall is the shleimus von seichel in the meaning von lechadish, and that's why the completion of seichel is when a person is able to be mechadish in seichel. Was weist, als ist gekommen zum Inyan Sichli in ganzem Keich Atzmi. Because that shows that the Inyan of Seichel resonated in his Keiches so much so that he's able to have his own take on it and his own words in it. Und wie bad ist der Tachlis von der Talmud Torah is, als der Seichel Adam soll nisachet werden mit Chachmas Yisbarich, b'yichon nifla, and since the whole point of Torah is that the Seichel of the person, our Rebbe says in Tanya, Perikei, that the Seichel of the person should be nisachet with the Eibishter. In a true Yichud, der Rebbe, wer die Shleimus HaNefesh, was darf dir gerecht werden durch Talmud Torah, aufgetan in dem, durch dem, was der Adam ist mechadish in Torah. And therefore, the Shleimus HaNefesh, which has to be done through learning Torah, is only when a person is mechadish in Torah. Because when can we say that a person's seichel with nisach with Eibishter? Dafka when his seichel is mechadish in Torah. Because that means that his seichel is connecting in his terms with the Eibishter in his terms. So in Siv Vav, the Rebbe is going to say how these two concepts, that on the one hand, Hakon Nitin L'Meshim Yisinai, everything comes from Torah, from Moshe Rabbeinu. On the other hand, a person has to mechadish in Torah. They refer to two concepts in Torah. In Torah Gufa, there's two concepts. Says the Rebbe in Zivav. Das ist echt der Chiluk in dem, wie Torah ist gegeben geworden um Meila, und wie sie werden noch gelernt durch Eden. This is the difference between the way Torah was given um Meila, and then the way Torah is learned by Eden. The pasuk says, "Lakach tev nasati lachem, matan Torah neisen Torah." It says that the Eibishter gave Yidden his Torah. Is that ikirat gashe v'ded lashon nesina di nesinam el ma'ila. When we say matan Torah, the Eibishter gave us Torah, means it's referring to a part of Torah that was given to us. That was given to us means that someone gave it to us. You're putting emphasis on who gave it to us. B is that this can come in the nesina. Aderech wenn mir seid beim Rave Talmud Olamata, wenn beim Rave leicht der Seichel mit ganzen Eirich v'Reicha v'Emek, lernt es dem der Talmud b'Lashon Chazal b'derech Ksara. Gibt der Talmud der Kitzur, die Nikudas HaSeichel anpratim. And like we see this Lamata, that when the Rav teaching the Talmud, if the Rav teaching the Talmud in a way that not that the Talmud should understand, but more the emphasis on the Rav's teaching the Talmud. So he teaches him b'derech ktsara. He teaches him in a short way. He gives the Talmud the kitzer, and from the kitzer, he wants the Talmud to take from the kitzer his understanding. The nekuda is in sich taka kela ala prata seichel. Taka, the kitzer or the nekuda is kela, everything the Rav wants the Talmud to bring out of that nekuda. Aber sie seien da niker via metzias farzich. All the details are there, but they're not a separate entity. They're all the way they were given from the Rav. But after the Rav gives it over to the Talmud. In other words, after the Talmud starts learning it in his own words, is that Iker. So what is the whole emphasis there? The Avana Vasagol Klita, the understanding and the comprehension from Inyan Yated in the Adam Makabal Haleimed. The emphasis is on the Adam Makabal, the Yid learning Torah. Not that the Eibishter gave it to him. Obviously, he has to have the Yisrael has to be that the Eibishter gave it to him. But the Kavanah, the Matara of Torah is that a Yid should use his Seichel and connect to the Eibishter on his Seichel's terms. Kedei as the Dvar Seichel on Niklat werden by mention. And if you want the person should grasp Torah in his terms, muss nehmen und verstehen jeder Prat von dem Seichel. He has to understand every detail of Seichel. He has to start analyzing this Nakuda. He has to start analyzing this general concept that was given to him and analyze the details of that concept, because that's how he's going to understand it. Und dafke durch dem, was in Tefes jeder Prat b'fnei atzmei, and through him analyzing each Prat b'fnei atzmei, through him analyzing each detail, wird bei ihm niklat durch die alle Pratim der Kitzur und Nakuda Saseichel kedeboi uv shnei Musa. Through him analyzing each prat, he's able to reach the shleimus of seichel in his own terms. Of a dogma. The Rebbe gives a practical example. Verstehen a Mishnah, was is b'derech ksara leumka uv shleimusa. How are you able to understand a Mishnah with a true understanding? It does dafke durch nach lernen und verstehen verkehrt sein leiyune. Was damals is das Teirasei, is dafka through a person learning it, analyzing it in depth, so he's able to understand it in his own seichel. Kol prate arichos adinim v'shak v'tayre v'cholu v'chazayin in brayso sugis hashas. If the Mishnah, in order to understand the Mishnah properly, it doesn't only help by a person learning a Mishnah and analyzing it. A person has to learn all the details that are included in the Mishnah. A person has to learn the Gemara. And a person has to learn all the sugis and shas and the braises that are connected to this Mishnah. And after learning all the details, he's able to get the true general concept of the Mishnah. And to give a dogma for this, Chassidus explains the difference between riyah and shmiya. When a person sees something and a person hears something. When a person sees something, he sees the general picture. Let's say a person sees a picture, he doesn't see the details of the picture. He sees the atzam picture, he sees the actual image. On the other hand, since he sees the actual image, he doesn't pay attention to the details. In other words, the picture doesn't resonate in his mind. He doesn't understand the picture, we could say. If a person would have to explain to someone a picture that he saw, so he's going to have to explain to him the pratim, he's going to have to explain to him the details. And through explaining the details and the person understanding the details, he's slowly going to start forming the general picture. So when the person who saw the picture sees the picture, he's seeing the picture the way the picture revealed itself to the person. In other words, the picture, the way the picture is, without giving a space to a separate entity, and therefore it doesn't come into the person, into his own capabilities. As opposed to when a person understands something, shmiya, when a person hears something and understands something, the way a person understands something is not by understanding the etzem thing. A person has to understand the details, and after through understanding the details, is he able to get to the general nikud. On the other hand, there's a mila, like we're going to see soon over here, and in the next sikha, there's a mila in him, dafka understanding the details, and that's the Chiddush of Chassidus Chabad. Through him understanding the details, he's able to grasp the inyan into his own terminology. He's able to explain the picture. He's not able to just say, I saw a picture. He's able to explain exactly what the picture is, because he reached to the general concept of the picture through his own understanding. And the Rebbe teaches says in Sif Zayin, and this is the main Sif, of the difference between Chassidus Chabad and the Baal Shem Tov Chassidus. Zayin. Bedugma l'zeh yesh leimar echt the chiluk zwischen Chassidus HaKlolus and Chassidus Chabad. Bedugma these two concepts. Number one, kol ma shetalmid v'asig asal l'chadesh, it's like a chiddush for the Talmud. And on the other hand, we say in the other extreme, that is nidna l'meshu misin, that comes from Moshe Rabbeinu. The same concept exists by Chassidus Chabad and Chassidus הכללית. The gilui for Chassidus הכללית durch Baal Shem Tov is that ikar adgasha bezev vizikum l'mayla. When Baal Shem Tov was machadish Chassidus in general, meaning when the Baal Shem Tov was magal Chassidus in a way that it could affect a person's day-to-day life, it was in a way the way that Chassidus comes from mayla, that it comes from above. What does it mean that it comes from above? Me'akadosh Baruch Hu v'tzadikim shneim l'beiram. Meaning it was in a way that Chassidus was revealed as something which is higher than the person's capabilities. Und der Fall is eine von die Hälfte Gashas von Chassidus הכללית in Emunah. That's why the main emphasis of Chassidus הכללית was in Emunah. Tzadik b'Emunah asa yichya. That was the emphasis on Emunah, was Emunah is nicht a Sach, was wird aufgetan durch den Menschen. Emunah is not something that comes from a person. When a person believes something, he didn't work in himself to believe in it. Nor zikum l'mayla. Where does the concept of Emunah come from? When a person believes in something, when a person believes in something, it's because the thing showed itself to him. If it's tamadas, if it's seichel, so he understood it with his own seichel. Where is the concept of belief? The concept of belief means that there's a higher purpose who's making you believe in that. Which includes in it, just like you have a Rav and Talmud, the Rav gives over to the Talmud seichel. Our fathers gave over to us the din of Emunah, which din of Emunah, cyber pashtus. The concept of belief in general comes from above. It comes from something which was shown to you, not something you worked on. And number two, even with the Chassidish pshat in Emunah, which Emunah comes from Etzem HaNefesh, is not something that a person worked on himself from it. A Yid gets his Emunah because he has an Echedek Lekavim al Mamish. He has an neshama, and that's where he gets his emunah from. So, which means that a person's emunah is a part of himself, doesn't relate to his own keiches, and that's why emunah is taka nevin of makif. And you can have a concept of gam v'apom karya, because the whole concept of emunah is something that was given to him, not something that he earned. Durch them was the Alter Rebbe getragen Chassidus in Chabad, Seichel Adam, through that the Alter Rebbe brought down the Chassidus of Baal Shem Tov into Chabad, then he made it understandable. It's not only that he changed the way Chassidus worked, that he explained it in Seichel. Alter Rebbe brought a new inyan. It's gegeben geworden die Efsharius of a Mele de Drisha, als die Inyanen von Chassidus sollen werden, muvan, bis niklat werden in Menschen durch Aveda Bekech Atzmei. The Alter Rebbe wasn't only explained Chassidus, but the Alter Rebbe was mechadish a new concept. A concept that Chassidus can now come from a person's own keiches. That Chassidus isn't only something which is given to you. Chassidus isn't only something which the Rabbeinu is gala and it's higher than your mitzvahs. It's something that a person could earn. It's something that a person could think with his own keiches. And the Rebbe teaches bepel. When a Yid harvet zu verstehen primus hatera, when a Yid brings Chassidus into Chabad, he understands primus hatera. He works to understand primus hatera. Teres Chassidus, bis das legt sich bei ihm ab until it's comprehended by him. Nesef mitzad emunah, nor eich mitzad zayin hatzagas haseichel. Not only he believes in it, but he understands it with his seichel. Demalt kommt zu der Yisrein, as der Chayes and Averis Hashem, was ihm kommt zu durch dem, is in an Uftu von dem Adam Eivet. A Zach, was hat mechadisch gegeben durch seine Gier. Through a person understanding Chassidus, in the Eifan Avan Vasog, a person understanding Chassidus with his own keiches, the outcome of what Chassidus is able to have an effect is also mitzad his own keiches. In other words, the chayes that the person gets out of Chassidus, through Chassidus Chabad, is the chayes that he earned. It's the chayes that he relates to, and it's the fias keiches aprim, it's his own chayes. Like when you see in the next section, the concept of chayes prati, it's something which he worked on and he earned. Und derfar hat Inyan von den Nesinus Keach, man soll kennen mechadisch sein und uftan in Aved apichsidis bekeach atzmei, gemusst in Skala werden durch eine Neshama Chadasha dafkan. That's why the Alter Rebbe had to be a Neshama Chadasha. Alter Rebbe had to be a new Neshama, because he didn't only bring down Chassidus into a lower level, the Alter Rebbe was mechadish Chassidus. Alter Rebbe brought a new concept that never existed before. That primus atera, number one, should be able to be understood with the seichel of a person and isn't only something which is given to the person. And even more so, the outcome of what premise of the Chabad, the Aveda that the Chassidus Chabad is mechadish, is an Aveda of serving the Eibush according to his own keiches. And having a chayes according to his own keiches. That's what the Alter Rebbe is mechadish. So what comes out from the Sikha is that the difference between the Alter Rebbe's Chassidus and Baal Shem Tov Chassidus isn't only that the Alter Rebbe brought down the Baal Shem Tov Chassidus into Havana V'Asogah. It's not that the Alter Rebbe just explained Chassidus. The Alter Rebbe is mechadish a new inyan. And this inyan is that a person with his own seichel is able to understand the Likkutei according to his own capabilities. So in Echamim, mitzad Chassidus itself, the Chassidus of the Alter Rebbe is musan on Baal Shem Tov Chassidus. The Chassidus of the Alter Rebbe is part of the Baal Shem Tov Chassidus and is explaining the Baal Shem Tov Chassidus. But regarding the person who's learning it and the inyan that the Alter Rebbe is mechadish, it's a completely new concept. So that's the first sikha. The second sikha of the booklet brings out the same nekudah, but more focusing on the aved of the person that was mechadish through the Alter Rebbe. The Rebbe starts explaining that Chassidus is achana from Mashiach, and it says in Kabbalah that Mashiach, the Gilui of Mashiach is going to be primis atik. All the Giluim that we have now is only from Chitzenius atik. When Mashiach comes, we're going to have a Gilui primis atik. And the Rebbe starts explaining the difference between Chitzenius atik and primis atik is the general difference between the primis of something, or the etzem of something, and the Chitzenius of something. Regarding the primis of something, that's the primis of a person. When a person does something mitzad is primis, so we see he's there 100%. Why? Because a person's primis is him, is who he is. As opposed to his chitzenius, is the way he's relating to something else, or the way he's putting himself in a separate entity. That has an effect on how much he's involved in the thing, because since he's relating to something else, it's not him. So when we say primis atik, it means the primis of a lakus, the way a lakus is higher than relating to another entity. And the Rebbe says that since Chassidus is achana from Mashiach, so in Chassidus brings out this concept in Avodas Hashem. And the Rebbe starts explaining in Sivav that Chassidus, and in general, primis ateros mechadish, that Yid kav chayis in Avodas Hashem. Like Chassidus is called Eir v'chayis nafshenu. Part of Chassidus was that Yid shouldn't only do mitzvahs mitzad mitzvahs and noshim l'madam, because he's used to doing them, but that a person should do Torah mitzvahs mitzad his chayis, because that's his passion. How does a person have a passion in something? A person can have a chayis in something when he relates to it. A person can have a chayis in something when it's him, when it's his mitzvahs. Something which is foreign to him, it's hard for him to have a connection to. Now, Chassidus was mechadish that Yid can have a chayis in Torah mitzvahs through being magala how a Yid and Torah mitzvahs are retzem one. That when Yid serving Torah mitzvahs, doing Torah mitzvahs, he's not doing a separate concept. It's not a separate entity. A Yid and the Eibishter aren't two separate things. Chassidus was magala, the neshama of every Yid, in a way that it'll be related on a day-to-day level. So a Yid always had a neshama, even before primis ater. But before primis ater, there was an emphasis on nishmas deiraisa, and therefore there was an emphasis on the neshama of a Yid being begilui. Yid were doing Torah mitzvahs more mitzad Kabbalah sale, or mitzad Avana V'Asogah, but they didn't understand it. But it wasn't mitzad who they are. Chassidus was mechadish and magala Yid neshama, that it should be revealed through learning primis ater. And through that, the Yid is able to do Torah mitzvahs with chayis, with a passion, because because that's who he is. Just like he breathes, and just like he eats, and things that relate to him, Torah mitzvahs also relate to him because that's who he is. That's Chassidus in general. Then the Rebbe starts explaining in Sifches that in that itself there's a difference between the Chassidus of Baal Shem Tov and the Chassidus of Alter Rebbe. So that's the Sifches, page 18 in the booklet in Sifches. The Rebbe says in dem Chayis Adam was sich mispashet in Guf seine voran zwei Madreges. In Chayis in general, when a person lives, the energy a person has, there's two madreges. And the Fidik is meilich in this. In the Shoshana Tavshin Ches. Aleph, der Chayis klali was belebt den ganzen Guf, mit alle seine Evarim b'shave. You have a Chayis, you have an energy that goes to a person's body, that makes him live. The general concept of living, that a person is alive, means that every single Ever in his body is alive. In dem Chayis in the talking chilukim von ein Ever bis in zweiten. And in this concept that a person is alive, and the general chayis that makes a person live, that's equal in every part of the guf. And you can't separate that between the head and the feet. The head is alive the same way the feet are alive. Then there's a concept of chayis prati. Chayis prati means that we know you have different parts of the body. A person has eyes, a person has feet. So we know there's different keiches in the body. There's Keich HaRiyah that comes into the eyes, and there's Keich HaShmiya that comes into the ears. Keich HaSeichel goes into the head, and every physical limb of the body is formed according to the Keich that it's able to receive. So that's Keiches. And Chassidus explains that besides Keiches, there's also something called Chayis Prati. Chayis Prati means that there's a Chayis that comes down to every aver, to every limb, and energizes that limb. And the Seichel has its energy, and the eyes have their energy, and the feet have their energy. That's called Chayis Prati. That's inside Beis. Der Chayis Prati was his Iskamas in jeder Ever leid seine Tchunis. You have a Chayis, they have an energy that comes down and is measured according to the capabilities of that Ever, of that limb. Nebat in brackets, was mitzad dem Chayis wird der Akasher Beregel angerufen, der Malach HaMavish Ba'adam. Wie bald as der Chayis is nicht mehr begilui. And the Gabi the Chayis Prati, in Chassidus calls on the feet that they are Malach HaMavish Ba'adam, the dead part of the body. The reason why the dead part of the body, mitzad Chayis Klali, you can't see that the feet is living less than the head. The head, if someone is alive, his head is alive and his feet are alive, etc. But if you're speaking about how much life goes into each limb, which limb is using more chayis, which limb needs more attention, more energy, so the head needs much more energy than the feet. And that's why Begashmish, the feet have much less attention than the head. So that's chayis klal and chayis prati. So the Rebbe says, wie Shleimar, as der Unterschied zwischen dem chayis Chassidus, was es nimshach, wenn es gal geworden durch der Baal Shem Tov, und dem Chayis, was in Nimshach von das Gal geworden durch der Alter Rebbe, ist auch der Chachiluk zwischen die zwei Efania Chayis. So the Baal Shem Tov and the Alter Rebbe, both from the Gal Chassidus, which Chassidus, like we said before, brings life into Torah Mitzvahs, to be Magal who he is. On the other hand, there's a difference between the Baal Shem Tov and the Alter Rebbe. The Rebbe explains. The Baal Shem Tov and Magal given a Chayis Klal in Torah Mitzvahs. The Baal Shem Tov revealed a general Chayis in Torah Mitzvahs. Was Bechlalus hat sich das ausgedrückt in dem Inyan and Amunah. And in general, that the Baal Shem Tov, his focus on, like we explained in the last was on an Amunah. On a person believing in the Eibishter. And bringing the Amunah down into day-to-day life. When Agam is the Keich Amunah nem durch alle Keiches HaNefesh und Pertev Zei and a Nefe von Chayis. Even though Amunah, when a person believes in something, and he brings that, he reveals that, and he brings that into his day-to-day life, that could bring him a tremendous chayis, a tremendous passion and energy in Torah mitzvahs. And that energy, bekamos, in quantity, was nehmt zei durch in ganzen, takes through his whole, permeates his whole body. Like it says, v'tzadik b'munasa yichya, tzadik can live with his emun. So he's taka living. It's not pshat that a lot of times we say that it's an efim makiv, and it doesn't have an effect on him. Like you have gama b'mechtar terachmana karya. You can have a situation where a Ganav could cry to the Eibishter while doing something against the Eibishter. Here we're speaking about that the Munataka makes him live. And the Munataka energizes him. Like Yidin of Baal Shem Tov, Talmid of Baal Shem Tov, who lived mitzad Emunah. On the other hand, Meintes Abenitas the Chayis Emunah nem durch yed the Keach eich mitzad Inyoni Aprati. Emunah doesn't have to do with each Keach that a person has. Nor mitzad Imini nakloli from yed the Keach. Was is verbunden mit den Nekudas Emunah from the Neshama. In other words, a person who's having energy mitzad emunah, a person who's having chayis, if that's what's keeping him going in Torah mitzvahs, it's not negea if he serves the Eibshter with his foot, he does a ma'isa mitzvah, and it's not negea if he learns Torah, and it's not negea if he has avos Hashem. All these pratim are all part of the general picture. The yesod of his aved is that he believes in the Eibshter. And since he believes in the Eibshter, the Rachameli is doing all these things. In other words, his brain and his heart are intermediates to serve the Eibishter because he believes in the Eibishter. But he doesn't focus on using his brain to serve the Eibishter because his brain needs to serve the Eibishter. And using his heart to serve the Eibishter because the heart needs to serve the Eibishter. Und derech wird die Chayis klali. Was nimmt durch alle Ivarim und wird vereinzigt mit sie. Es ist aber nicht verbunden mit den Jone Aprati von dem Ever. Nur mit den Nekude Klalis von alle Ivarim, was sie sein na Teil von Guf Adam. Just like Chayis Klali, which the concept of Chayis Klali means that there are Ivarim. There are separations between different parts of the body. But those separations all get their Chayis in the same way. They all get their chayes because they're part of the same body. And therefore the head isn't living any less than the foot. Because he's getting the same chayes, the general chayes from the chayes klali. The Alter Rebbe, the Abba Mamshach given, a chayes in jedem keach von dem neshama. Alter Rebbe's Chiddush was that he brought a new passion in every keach of the neshama. And in jeder Aveda in Terem Mitzvahs, which the Rebbe adds in bracket, that affected in every sort of Aveda, a person can also have chayes mitzad that Aveda. Eich mitzad dem teichen prati from the keach, also mitzad the capabilities of each specific strength a person has. Adarich with the chayes prati, but says eiskem masten leiten keach prati from jeder. Just like chayes prati is measured according to every single limb. But the Far is verbunden mit Chabad, and that's why the Alter Rebbe was mechadish Chassidus Chabad. Was Seichel und die Pole von Seichel ist durch Tefes sein die Prati im Kzavis von dem Muskel und in der Nefen, was ist sich mislabisch in die Keches an Nefesh und peilt in See in an Nefen Primi. Eich mit dem Teichen Prati von dem Keach. Which Seichel, which Chassidus Chabad, and the way Seichel works, Begashmias, the way a person understands something, like we explained before, the difference between the and Shmir, the way a person understands something is dafka through delving into the details of the concept. That's the way Seichel works. A person, in order to grasp the general concept, a person has to have the details. So number one, that some concept of Seichel means that a person is delving into the specific details of each muscle, the thing that he's thinking about. And number two, the way Seichel affects the rest of the body, the way Seichel affects the Keches HaNefesh is that Seichel is able to be mislabish. Seichel comes down and brings the concept down into each Aver according to his capabilities. In other words, Seichel comes into Midas in Midas's world, and Seichel comes into Maisa in Maisa's world. Each capability of the person is able to translate the Seichel according to their Keach. And that's Chassidus Chabad. Chassidus Chabad is Megale that a person can have a chayis to the Eibishter in Terem Mitzvahs, or a person could focus on in Terem Mitzvahs, not only in the general concept of believing in the Eibishter, but that each Keach has their way of serving the Eibishter. And that's why a person has different Keachas. Because each Keach has their way of serving the Eibishter, and he has to use his capabilities according to his Keach to serve the Eibishter with that Keach. So what's higher? To serve the Eibishter mitzad emunah, in other words, to be completely penetrated with chayes that you believe in the Eibishter, which emunah is a strong thing. You can give up your life mitzad emunah. And a person who lives in Terem Mitzvah mitzad emunah, it's a gewaldig good thing. On the other hand, when you're focusing on Seichel, and you're focusing on Midas, all these things are limited keiches, limited capabilities. So what's higher? So that I've been siftah, so the gam is the chayes prati. Is the chayra nidrike dargin chayes wie the chayes klali, even though the specific chayes, the chayes prati, in general is lower than the chayes klali, is general than the lower chayes. Why varum aleph? As a is a begrenzt the chayes, wie bad is eskemosten liten ever. Number one, it's a limited chayes, because it's limited according to the aver of that of the limb that it's mislamishin. Like we said before about the raglaim, the akasha beragel, the heels are the lowest part of the body because they have the lowest amount of chayes. So number one, the chayes prati is limited according to his aver, and base der bittel von dem aver zum chayes is nit as a tiefer bittel wie bald as der chayes git an ort von ihnen a prati von dem aver. Here's a very different nekuda, that not only in kamos, not only in quantity is chayes prati different, that it comes down according to each aver, which means that it's measured according to each aver, but also in quality, the chayes that comes down is also different. Because since chayes prati gives a nisinus makim, it's there to bring down chayes to that aver. It's there to bring down chayes to the specific limb of the body, whether it's seichel, or whether it's the eyes, whether it's the feet. So you can't say that the limb is completely penetrated, the limb is only a vessel for the chayes. Because the chayes is coming to the aver, the chayes is coming to the limb. And therefore, the connection between the chayes and the aver isn't in a way that the aver loses itself. Isn't in a way that the aver isn't significant over here. The aver is significant. As opposed to chayes klali is a person is living, so the way the neshama is mislabish in the guf, the way the chayes comes down to the guf, is in a way that the guf isn't tevis makim. Meaning that the guf is only a vessel, the chayes lives through the guf. The guf becomes a living being. And when a person starts feeling his chayes, starts feeling himself, that's a problem. Because a person is not supposed to feel himself. The body is only a recipient for the chayes. The second the body starts feeling chayes, means there's a disconnection between the chayes and the body. It means the body is not completely bottled to the chayes. Haguf atzmi nasel chay, the guf becomes a living being. The reason why that happens is because the chayes isn't coming to mechay the guf is being lived b'derech u'meila. As opposed to chayes prati means that each aver has their own chayes, which means the chayes is number one measured for that part of the guf, and number two, it's a different type of chayes. It's a chayes that's coming down to the aver, which means that he has to translate to the aver's own capabilities. So in these two pratim, it's low in the chayes klali. So as the Rebbe is frana maile in dem chayes prati, in chayes klali, bis azinim tudzuchu v'dav chadash. That something new happens. What's the maile? Says the Rebbe, das guf of the chayes klali is nicht verbunden mit inyan prati von jedem aver. Is aber weiß, als ihm direkt sich nicht ist, die Schleimus achayis mamisch. Was der Fahr nimmt ihm nicht durch, echt in der Prati von dem Mever. That itself that you say achayis klali isn't measured according to each aver, according to each limb, with its capabilities, means that you can't say that the true energy is there. Because dafke in dem chayis prati was nimmt durch die Evarim mitzad zeir in a prati, dafka with chayis prati, which chayis prati means that every specific limb is being energized according to his capabilities, from chayis, that it's energy, it's something that makes him, that energizes him, that makes him live, was nem ze durch in ganzen, and like we explained, that chayis means that it completely penetrates it. That is the true concept of life. That is a true concept of living. Like we said before in the beginning of the Sikha, that the concept of chayis means that there's no disconnect between the thing that's being mechaya and the thing that's getting chayis. If there's a disconnect between the thing that's giving life and the thing that's getting lived, a person can't live 99%. A person can't live 10%. Either a person is alive 100% or he's not living. When chayis is mechaya something, a person, the thing that's getting chayis can get a percentage of life. He has to be there 100%, meaning there has to be a complete connection between the mechaya, the davar mechaya, and the neshama of the thing and the guf of the thing. And like we see the neshama and the guf, the way the guf works to get chayis from the neshama is that the guf, he himself becomes completely a living being. There's no disconnect between the neshama and the guf. So even though b'chayis klali, physically, the whole guf is living, at the end of the day, you can't say that the true expression of life, the true expression of the neshama is nizgal over here. Because there's still theoretically a part of the guf that doesn't inherit the chayis, that doesn't have a connection to the chayis, which that is the capabilities of each keach, the keach hariyah, the keach haseichel. Dafka through chayis prati brings out the true definition of chayis, that he's able to come down into every single detail, and he has a connection to every detail of the guf. And the same thing is regarding the Alter Rebbe's Chassidus. Dafka durch dem, was der Alter Rebbe hat mamshach gewend dem Chayisen von Chassidus, in die Prati Keichs HaNefesh Likkutei Sichos, Dafka through the Alter Rebbe bringing Chassidus Chabad into understanding, which you said before, that Seichel, the Keich of Seichel is able to bring down into all the Keiches according to their capabilities. Hat mamshach gewend b'shleimus und Teres Abba Shem Tev, was der Fahr wird euch die Prati HaKeiches durchgenommen mit die Chayis von Chassidus. That Dafka through the Alter Rebbe, the Alter Rebbe was able to bring the Chassidus of Baal Shem Tov in the Chabad. Bringing Chassidus in the Chabad means that now Chassidus is able to be applicable and Chassidus is able to be machaya every single part of the person according to their keiches, according to their tchunas. That seichel can have its own chayis and avodas Hashem, and minas can have its own chayis and avodas Hashem. And Maisa, a person can have a chayis mitzad Maisa and avodas Hashem. Each tchuna mitzad who they are, they can have a chayis to avodas Hashem, and that relates to their tchunas. So these two sichos bring out the concept of number one, that Chassidus Chabad, on the one hand, is a continuation of Chassidus HaKlallit. The Alter Rebbe teichteis the Chassidus of the Baal Shem Tov into Chabad, but that came with two main chidushim, like we said in Tona. Number one, which was the first sicha, that through bringing Chassidus into Chassidus Chabad means that the Alter Rebbe brought a new aspect in Chassidus. That Chassidus is something that's able to be understood, that comes into the Chabad Shebenefesh. which means that the emphasis of Chassidus isn't on how it's given, Mamaila, isn't something that's detached from the person, but it's something that a person earns with his own understanding. That's the first Sikha. The second Sikha, Taich is more in Aveda, that a person's Avedas Hashem, the chayis that a person has in Torah mitzvahs through Chassidus, isn't only a chayis klali, isn't only a general chayis, which comes from Emunah, but that each kreach, mitzad, their distinctions are able to serve the Eibishter according to their capabilities. The kreach HaSeichel is able to have a chayis mitzad the kreach HaSeichel, and Midas are able to have a chayis and Avedas Hashem mitzad their inyan. And Mais is able to have mitzad their inyan. Each kreach mitzad their pratistic tchuna is able to have a chayis in serving the Eibishter mitzad their tchuna.